What if your phone could read your mind? What if we could live on Mars? Or probably very importantly right now, in the current scenario, what if AI could become one of us? Science fiction has imagined all of this long before it was anywhere possible.
It's not possible.
No, it's necessary.
But the genre is way more than aliens and lasers. It's that one genre which lets us dream and dream big. But what exactly is science fiction? Let's find out. Science fiction is storytelling which explores speculative ideas based on science and technology. It asks, what if, and dares to give you an answer. Like, what if time travel was possible? Or what if machines gain consciousness? What if we lost our planet and we have nowhere else to live? A lot of people confuse science fiction with fantasy, but science fiction is rooted in the reality that we live in, unlike fantasy, which often dreams up a completely different world. Harry Potter, that is exactly what fantasy is. Imagine getting into a train station within a train station to go to an alternate world where wizards are a real thing. But then in science fiction, there's space opera, cyberpunk, hard sci-fi, climate science fiction, and so many more. And yes, sometimes science fiction can blend with fantasy, as it does with a lot of other genres. But at its heart is always science. Let's rewind and understand the history of science fiction first. Many consider Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, published in 1880, to be the original first sign of science fiction in literature, where a scientist creates life and repents it immediately. It is the perfect mix of morality, science, and imagination. But is it really the first science fiction novel ever published? Not quite. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written around 2100 BC, had a lot of elements of speculative science fiction in its writing. In fact, if you know your history very well, you know that was the Mesopotamian era. This had elements of space travel and a lot much more. Johann Kepler's Somnium is another example. It blends space travel and alien moons into a philosophical speculative fiction narrative. And then came the legends. Jules Verne wrote about submarines and space travel long before they were ever exist. H.G. Wells imagined genetic engineering, time travel, and alien inventions. In fact, in the 1920s, there was a large movement of affordable science fiction magazines called pulp magazines, which popularized the idea of science fiction and enabled discourse of a lot of misunderstood concepts in science to help educate the common man. And then there are writers like Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, and Ray Bradbury, which gave science fiction a whole new life of literary criticism. In fact, a lot of real events did shape the future of science fiction in that present world. Like, take for example, as the Cold War loomed,
Even if there are only one communist in the State Department, that would still be one communist too many.
in the 50s and 60s, science fiction narratives of that time did mirror a lot of real fears like totalitarian governments and nuclear war. Just take, for example, George Orwell's 1984. It is a political fiction novel, but there are so many concepts in that, like microphones and enhanced surveillance due to cameras and telescreens, that it could be said that it is not very clear whether real science came from science fiction or science fiction came from real science. But here's the thing. Having futuristic tech or space travel in your narrative doesn't make your book qualify as science fiction.
Close but no cigar.
In fact, there's a whole other definition to science fiction. As Dr. David Powers suggested, all modern science fiction can be broadly classified into two groups: soft science fiction and hard science fiction. Soft science fiction often uses a lot of milder science, where the main focus of the text is not per se the science, is in fact a lot of other philosophical, political, or perhaps any other genre that the book is written on. But hard science fiction, it is everything about the science. Heart and soul of that book is pure science. Perhaps what's amazing is how much science fiction has predicted. Like I said, that it is hard to understand whether science fiction came first or real science came first. Take, for example, video calls. Star Trek predicted it. AI.
All right, Hal.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore.
2001 A Space Odyssey had the HAL system.
Virtual reality.
That's right, sir.
Virtual reality, Matrix. There is often a very deep sense of morality behind science fiction. It even explores a lot of ethical dilemmas and the identity of various ethnic groups, sometimes even the identities of robots. Like it helps us answer questions like, should we clone people? What if AI gains a consciousness? What happens if we edit our memories? But no, science fiction is not going to give you easy answers. It will make you think. It is that genre of books that makes you put the book down in the middle of a chapter, in the middle of a line, and makes you ponder over the deep answers. It in fact makes you wonder about who you truly are and what you expect from the future. From Dune to Transformers to Black Mirror, science fiction shapes a lot of popular culture, in turn shapes so many other genres in the common public space. Like even take for example the highly popular Mission Impossible series. Although it is spy fiction at its core, it does not hesitate to flirt with sci-fi tropes. And Transformers? Perhaps my favorite science fiction films of all time. And of course, you have the Marvel Cinematic Universe, along with the comics, which explore superhuman abilities and so much more. So there is a wide variety of ages which are targeted. It is not all entertainment, you know. There is a lot of interviews of NASA scientists being inspired by sci-fi tropes.
What stories have inspired you to want to pursue a career in astrobiology?
You know, mostly Isaac Asimov, also Ray Bradbury or Arthur C. Clarke. I consumed a lot of science fiction. And I think, you know, it's hard to point to sort of any one story, but just the whole sort of framework of science fiction, you know, I would sort of say, all of that was really my inspiration.
And in fact, coming up with inventions which were one dreamed of in sci-fi. Stephen Hawking often cited sci-fi. It is absolutely everywhere in our lives. In our games, AI assistants, it is even in how we cook our own food. That's how deep and penetrative the effects. It's very clear that sci-fi influences the science we pursue. It influences the careers children think of when they're young and have to come up with a choice as to who they see themselves 50 years down the line. As Stanway noted in a research paper, there are so many acronyms from sci-fi found in actual literature in science. But for me, science fiction has been so much more than just entertainment value. I am a student of science. That is, I studied science. I have a triple major in chemistry, botany and zoology. And sometimes learning was just boring. Sci-fi made it so much more interesting. Because I was an avid reader throughout my college years, there was a lot of novels, sci-fi novels that I read, which explained concepts that I was learning in class. And in fact, went as far as make it so much more clearer for me that I could pursue some research papers in the same field. But as a writer, it makes me want to write science fiction to bring back that spark in science in the people. Do tell me in the comments what science fiction means to you. Let me know what your favorite sci-fi books, movies have been through the years. Let's have a conversation down in the comments. And if you love exploring futuristic ideas and how you could write those futuristic ideas in your writing, do hit subscribe, because this is just the starting of this channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.